Hello, I'm David Gray, and let's continue with the series of videos on the story behind the picture. A few of you, or maybe even more than a few of you, seem to have enjoyed the first video in this series on the stream at Bowman Lake, or at least nobody really beat me up too hard about straying from my tried and true genre on trip videos, so I thought I'd press on with this one. And thank you all very much for the comments, suggestions, and recommendations that you all gave me. This is really a work in progress for me, so all of your feedback helps me to make it better. I've decided for the next 4 story behind the picture videos that'll take us all back to September of 2015 and my Ansel Adams Wilderness hike in the Sierra Nevada of California. I'm often asked what my best backpacking trip of all time has been, and that's a difficult question for me to answer because it doesn't always come down to the most spectacular scenery. Sometimes it's those special trips that I take with my son Christian, and sometimes best means those shared experience with great hiking partners like Bob, Carl, Justin, Travis, and Tyler. But if you measure best in terms of the number of great pictures taken mile for mile, then without question, the Ansel Adams trip in September 2015 wins the award. The 4 pictures that I'm going to cover in these next story videos are entitled Sunrise at Ediza Lake, Camp at Garnett Lake, Sunrise at Garnett Lake, and Cowboy on the Pacific Crest Trail. As an added bonus, for 3 of these 4 pictures, I was actually capturing video at the exact moment that I took the pictures. The 2015 Sierra trip was a pretty big leap and a pretty big challenge for me. It was my first ever solo Western backpacking trip, and though I had done many solo trips before, I'd never done one without the dogs, never done a big trip out west, and I'd never done a trip where fires weren't going to be allowed for the entire 4 days. So for 4 days plus 2 travel days, it was just going to be me and my thoughts, and that was a little bit intimidating, and honestly it was a little bit frightening too. In terms of planning for the trip, I chose the area that I did, the Ansel Adams Wilderness, out of the Agnew Meadows trailhead near Mammoth Lakes, California, because it's known for just absolutely spectacular scenery. Probably the best scenery mile for mile in the entire Sierra. I specifically chose Ediza Lake, Garnett Lake, and Thousand Island Lake for my campsites, even though they're only separated by a few miles, because they're considered the most beautiful lakes in the entire region. In fact, John Muir is said to have considered Ediza Lake the most beautiful lake in the entire Sierra Nevada, and now having been there, I can't really argue with that assessment. The Ediza Lake sunrise picture was taken very early on the second morning of the trip. So early, in fact, that I hadn't even had my Dunkin' Donuts coffee yet, and for anybody who knows me, they understand that that's a true testament to my desire to capture that golden hour of light before the sun comes up. At the time the picture was taken, I was very tired, not only because of the pre-dawn wake-up call, but also because the night before had been one of the more interesting in my entire backpacking experience. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with a start to find somebody shining a flashlight in the top of my tent. And to understand the significance of that, you have to realize that Ediza Lake sits kind of on a cul-de-sac about 2 miles away from the main John Muir Trail, and the only place you're allowed to camp on the lake is in the far southwest corner. So on that spot, you're about as far away from any people as you can probably imagine. So after kind of getting my wits together and calming myself down just a little bit, I poked my head out of the tent, screamed, "Who's there? Who's there?" And I looked up and I saw the most spectacular full moon you can possibly imagine. So after chuckling at myself a little bit and kind of pulling myself back together, I tried to get back to sleep, but there wasn't much sleep to be had that night. So when I woke up in the morning, it had pretty much been a sleepless night. As the sky began to brighten that morning, I walked over to a rock cliff that was near my camp on the southwest corner of the lake. The afternoon before, I had spent quite a bit of time in that area because it was a really incredible setting with great views of the lake and the mountains in the distance. And as the sun came up, I took quite a few pictures in that area, all of which I thought were pretty good. But in the end, the sunrise shot for this video was the one that was my favorite. In regards to technical details, the Ediza Lake sunrise picture, like the Stream at Bowman Lake picture, are both high dynamic range or HDR images covering a 7 EV or 7 f-stop range. But unlike the Stream at Bowman Lake picture, which required a relatively elaborate camera setup, the Ediza Lake picture was really done with just a simple point-and-click program mode on the camera. I did make some adjustments to make sure that the aperture range was centered around the ideal f8 aperture, but other than that, it was really just in point-and-click mode. In hindsight, I should have just put the camera in aperture priority mode and fixed the aperture at f8 for all of the images, but next time. Another difference from the Stream at Bowman Lake picture is that I used SNS HDR Pro as the software to compile the final image rather than Photomatix Pro. And the reason I did that is I was striving for a more realistic look rather than the ethereal type look for the Stream at Bowman Lake picture. And at the time that image was taken in 2015, SNS HDR Pro was the best software available for creating a natural type HDR look. Now that you know the background, let's take a look at a few video clips that'll set the stage leading up to when the Ediza sunrise picture was taken. This is the road to the Agnew Meadows trailhead. Well, this is Agnew Meadow. Made it to the Ansel Adams Wilderness. Welcome to Shadow Lake. Look what I found. This is Ediza Lake. I feel like the Simba moment in The Lion King, you know.
This woke me up, and I thought something was standing over me with a flashlight. Just kind of freaked me out. That's the moon.
The sun is just coming up over the mountain. Give you the bird's eye view while I take one of these. Okay, we find ourselves on the computer once again. Kind of liking doing all of this computer stuff. I might have to do more videos like this. You guys are going to get to see so many of my videos that you're going to get tired of watching me. Let's go ahead and we'll recreate the Ediza sunrise shot here. Again, as I mentioned on the Stream at Bowman Lake picture, I use Adobe Lightroom as my software of choice for organizing all my pictures and then for most of my editing as well. And what you're seeing here, these are the base images from the Sierra trip, starting here at 5614, and we got to remember that because we'll go over to another program here and load them up and actually compile the final image. 5614 up through 5620. Top row here and these down here. And one of the things I didn't really explain all that well on the Stream at Bowman Lake video is why I shoot HDR in the first place, and I think these pictures really illustrate the need to do that, or one of the reasons why you would want to do that. This is an extremely high contrast shot, and that's the time when you want to use HDR. If you notice on the base image here, which is 5614, this is what you would call the normal exposure. You really get the worst of all possible worlds. There's no color in the sky. There's really no detail in the shadows. Pretty bland shot, to be honest. Then as you get into the underexposed ones, you start getting the beautiful colors in the sky. And then if we look at the overexposed ones, you start pulling in some of those shadow details. And so what the HDR software is actually able to do is kind of give you the best of all possible worlds. You get the shadow details, you keep the highlights in the sky, and actually you just kind of get a more natural look the way that your eye actually sees it. I'm sure you've run into situations where you've gone on a trip, a backpacking trip or a vacation to some beautiful destination, and you're showing people all the pictures from your trip and you use the phrase, well, it looked better in person. HDR gives you the ability to actually recreate the image in the way that your brain actually saw it when you were standing on the scenes. So we'll go ahead and minimize that and open up Aurora HDR. Last time, if you remember, on the stream shot we used Photomatix Pro. The reason I used Photomatix for the stream shot is I was trying to get more of an ethereal, kind of a stylistic type look. Aurora is really good at just creating a natural look. But let's go ahead and here's 5614. All the way up through 5620. I've selected them all and we'll open those up. You'll notice here with Aurora that there's really very few settings that you have to worry about, unlike the Photomatix Pro, where there were quite a few things that we had to adjust or set. There really isn't much that you have to do. You have one option here for auto alignment. If you handheld the shot, this will actually try to align all the features between the various shots. Since I took this picture on a tripod, I'm going to leave that turned off. And then you can open up this other settings tab, and you've got 3 settings here. I always turn color denoise on. It helps remove, if you're in a low light situation or some of the low light areas on the picture, you may get some color artifacts, so that helps. And then ghost reduction, Usually associate that with if you have like people walking through a scene and you can pick the image that it's going to be able to use to actually get rid of that ghosting effect. But sometimes it helps if you have a wind blowing and you have leaves in the background, it'll start to make the picture look a little blurry. So I typically turn that on. With those few settings adjusted, we'll go ahead and create the HDR shot here. So right now it's just loading up the images, detecting the scene objects, final touches to make it awesome. All right, there you go. Now down at the bottom here, and just like on Photomatics where we had quite a few presets that we could choose from, you've got the same situation here. This is the realistic landscape. Got an enhanced landscape, a bright landscape. You know, it's a fairly simple adjustments that you can make, and there's other collections that you can load in. I won't go through all of these, but there's all kinds of presets just like on Photomatics. Anyways, I'll leave it as the realistic landscape. Then what you do is export your picture here. Allows me to save it. I'm not going to go through all of this because I've already done it. There is one more step here that I didn't show on the stream picture from Bowman Lake, but I do re-import these back into Adobe Lightroom to make some final touches on them. I have to change this to a 16:9 format to include it on the video because that's the native format for the high-def video. You can see some vignetting up here in the corner, it's called. Probably a couple little dust spots here where there was some dust on the image sensor, and then I'll also increase the sharpening just a little bit before I bring it into the final video. There you have it. Sunrise at Ediza Lake, Sierra Nevada, September 2015. There you go. Now you know the story behind the picture. Sunrise at Ediza Lake, Ansel Adams Wilderness, Sierra Nevada, California, September 2015.